Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Wade Carpenter, the president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Park City Police Chief in Park City, Utah. And I'm very happy to be here in Dubai today with this group of law enforcement leaders. I'm joined by my fellow IACP representatives, First Vice President Ken Walker, International Vice President Liam Price, General Chair of the State Provincial Police Matt Packard, and other law enforcement staff from IACP. I'd also like to thank our hosts, the Dubai Police and Ministry of Interior, for all their hard work that went into preparing for this conference, as well as for their hospitality.
But at the end of the day, the thing that's going to allow your interrogators to be successful is not only effective training, but the use of these techniques over an extended period of time so that they can develop them, so that they can become comfortable with them, so that they are effective with them. Historically, it takes hours and hours in an interview room to allow someone to become comfortable and confident to be able to execute these interview tactics. The ability to walk into an interview room, sit down across someone who is suspected of committing anything from a homicide, again, to a former head of state, requires that level of commitment as well as training and experience.
We see a lot of victims being harbored in hotels, and in the past year, we've also rescued a lot of victims. And when we have conversations with operators that work in this industry, we give them the basic training that they need. We tell them it's as simple as putting your human trafficking hotline.
And victims traffic from Europe into those settings, but it's not one of the issues, the types of exploitation that we see as a huge problem compared to other countries. We do have an issue with seasonal workers and the exploitation in farming, particularly with our departure from Europe. So it's not a huge issue that we see. Again, it's the typology, it highlights the typologies of exploitation in different jurisdictions.
Asian countries to work in illegal gambling. They are forced to work not only as operators but also as maid, cooks, and some as prostitutes. So it's a serious problem, and it's a growing problem. Yeah. Yes.
I would like to be able to say it's something that's long in the past, but to give you some idea, and I should say that no one knows exact figures, because most human traffickers don't identify themselves. But it is believed that we may have more slavery today than we had 200 years ago. So we don't call it slaves anymore, we call it now human traffickers or forced labor, but it's the same thing. It's just a new word for the old problem. Is there anybody who would like to stand up and ask a question to any of our panelists? If not, I'll ask them some more questions.
And since that time, the number of leads have really skyrocketed and grown to epic proportions. You know, last year alone, we had 36 million reports that came into our tip line. And many of those reports are coming from members of the public, but also from the companies themselves. You know, there's a law in the United States, 18 United States Code 2258, that requires electronic service providers in the US, when they're aware of child sexual abuse material on their platforms, they have to report it to our cyber tip line. And so many of these companies, they're global in nature, huge companies. And so when they report, you know, it really has turned NECMEC into this global clearinghouse of information where we are receiving it, providing it to law enforcement all around the world. Just one second.
I'm very blessed here to be represented by an international presence, starting with Her Excellency Shi Young Lee from the Singaporean government. We have also Mr. Peter Severine from the ICPA, the International Corrections and Prisons Association. We have our very own Lieutenant Nof Al-Hamadi from Correction Institutions. She's the head of the Director General's office. And last but not least, we have Dr. Guy Ainsley from the University of Oxford, the #1 university in the world for the past 7 years. Happy to have you all here, and I have so many questions for all of you, and I hope we were able to answer all of these questions meticulously. Starting with Young Lee, we hear a lot about the Singaporean government and the best practices that you have across the world. I'd be happy to understand what sort of best practices you have in the prisons, and what are you looking at improvising for modernization?
Thank you for that question. I think I would first like to thank all of you for giving me this opportunity to share about the Singapore Prison Service. Maybe I would like to frame this answer of what are the strategies for a modern correctional service in 3 areas. Modernization in terms of the hardware, and modernization in terms of the software, and modernization in terms of the hardware. By hardware, modernization hardware, I'm referring to not just infrastructure, but also technology modernization. How do we do modernization initiatives looking at building institutions with security?
Mr. Peter, happy to have you here. Peter is the president of the ICPA and has been working with Dubai Police for quite a long time now to establish conferences and research in the vicinity. Peter, would you be able to tell us the ICPA experience when it comes to modernization, and how do you advocate for it? How do you support individuals and organizations in achieving it?
Thank you. May I also thank the organizers of the World Police Summit most sincerely for inviting me to be part of this outstanding event, and the whole of our ICPA board was actually here a couple of days early to have a board meeting, so it's fantastic. ICPA is an organization that's quite unique. It brings together members from the public sector, the private sector, the non-government sector, academics, to really share what is best practice in corrections worldwide. We are a global organization, and like Commissioner Shi mentioned, what we're trying to do is share what really works well so that countries can take that away, adopt it to the way it best fits in the context of their culture and also their country, and improve corrections through that approach. So ICPA is holding a major conference every year, and we also have some very specific conference looking at technology or looking at planning and design, at research. The major conference this year will be in Singapore, but we also have an event before that at the end of April in Istanbul.
Dubai perspective, you've been working in the prisons for quite a while now.
Yes.
What are the different technologies that Dubai is adopting to modernize its institutions?
Thank you, Maryam. Thank you all for being here. At the beginning, the General Department of Correctional Institutions have implemented a technology framework. This framework has 7 programs that support our core function. and for the benefits of the institution and of course the benefits for our inmates. During pandemic, the adaptability of this technological framework supported the institutions, which shows that the institution is ready for the crisis management. Speaking about some of the services, starting with the financial services, which is very important for the inmate. It's one of the kind globally in corrections. This service, I'll tell you one example about it. Before, the inmate family should attend to our correction in Dubai through the working timing only to deposit money for the inmate and for him. But now, this service has more than 4 channels. It's globalized. It can be made through 24/7. Another service, we have the medical service, which is very important. This service was implemented virtually through the pandemic. So we can reduce the physical contact and we still continue giving them the medical support that they need. This service is also introduced with advanced machines as the TB machines, reducing the timing from 3 days to 3 minutes only, preventing the overcrowding in the cell, and we don't need to isolate inmates before knowing if they are detected or not. Speaking about the educational program as well, which is playing a big role in the rehabilitation, we shifted our classrooms to virtual classrooms so they can continue in learning and giving them advanced learning methods.